power of knowledge, the power of technology. This is you to the power of IBM. Find out how you can do your best work at ibm.com/you.
Get in touch with technology with TechStuff from HowStuffWorks.com.
Hey there, and welcome to a very special episode of TechStuff. I'm your host, Jonathan Strickland. I am live at Speakeasy in Austin, Texas during South by Southwest Interactive 2016. And sitting with me is Emma Loggins, someone also who lives in Atlanta, someone that I've known because we're friends with the same people.
Yeah, same circles.
Same circles. We've never really interacted directly that much until now, and I'm questioning why. Because, Emma, you run an amazing blog that's science fiction, fantasy, fan-based, FanBolt. I want you to tell me, I have so many questions for you about running a blog. I mean, blogs are something that we're all familiar with. We know what they are. We know how long they've been around. But there's so many challenges to creating a good one.
Yeah.
More challenges to finding your audience, being able to nurture that audience, grow a community. So to start off, why don't you first tell us, kind of in your words, what FanBolt is all about?
Okay. Well, FanBolt's is I kind of walk the line between blog and news site because it's a site by the fans for the fans. So all the content is very editorial in nature, focuses mainly on genre programming and genre films. So a lot of sci-fi, horror type properties that we review. We have a little bit of gaming on there as well, and a little bit of just kind of general geek culture. We're getting ready to do this whole big geek travel thing. So when you go to other countries and you want to see sets that were used in Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, like where you would go. So kind of like a geeky travel guide. So it's all about geek culture and the fan community behind that. And we've had members on the site that have been there since we launched in 2002, and we still, they still post on the site and we still talk, almost daily. So the fan community aspect of that has been really the driving force behind it.
That's amazing. So, first of all, I've got a tip for you.
Okay.
So on the island of Malta, they still have the village from the film Popeye that Robin Williams starred in as Popeye.
Oh, wow.
They filmed it there. It is still there.
Noted.
Yeah, so I know it's not as genre as some of the other movies, but if you want to see Sweet Haven, it exists on Malta. So I want to ask you about what inspired you to get involved in this in the first place? What led to the development of FanBolt?
Well, I was a total outcast nerd in middle school. And granted, it didn't start FanBolt's until I was a senior in high school, but that kind of got me involved in really just so much geek culture. And then once, we had the internet and we had it in our house, and I had wasn't dealing with dial-up and getting knocked offline every 4 seconds. I started playing around with designing websites in the late 90s. And then I was super passionate about the shows that I was watching, and I didn't really feel like there was a good place online to really come together and, because this is pre-social media, so where do you go to talk about the shows that you love and the theories that you have and, what you think is going to happen, spoilers, photos from set, all that kind of fun insider stuff. But I was also living in Georgia and didn't know how to get any of that myself anyways. But I started the site and started the fan community, and, we would have people that would just flood onto the site after an episode would air. And we even would have people coming in from productions that would kind of stay anonymous and give us little tips. So we had a lot of really cool insider stuff on there in the beginning too, which really fostered the community. And my whole kind of strategy with it initially was it was a message board community, and then I built these other kind of satellite sites around it for the different TV shows, which had a strong fan base. That way, when one show ended, I didn't just totally lose that entire fan base that I'd spent 4 years building. So that worked out really well from an SEO component to being able to there was a number of shows that we actually ranked above the official site for. And so we would get, 8,000 people on after an episode. And back in, 2002, 2003, that's a pretty big, I thought it was a big deal. I don't know if those numbers would be that big of a deal now by any stretch. But it was something really cool. I had no idea what I was doing. And it just opened up so many doors and so many opportunities. And I guess the real kind of big breakthrough of it, Josh Schwartz, the creator of the OC, found my site in 2005. And of course, OC, which aired on Fox, was produced by Warner Brothers. And he told Warner Brothers he wanted me to run their official site for the series. And so I did that. I was their blogger with them for 3 years until the series ended. And I really just tried to make the most out of every contact and connection that I got through that. And then I realized, I can actually do this. You know, this is not just a hobby. Like I can make a business out of this.
Now, you mentioned that you were able to turn this into a business, which is really interesting. It's phenomenal. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Because the blogosphere is huge.
Yeah.
A lot of people run blogs as a hobby. They do it as a passion project. So tell me about the steps you took moving something that was already obviously something you really cared about, but something that you could actually make into a business, a legitimate way to earn a living.
It took a long time. When people always ask me about how I've made money off of the site and how I've kind of structured things, I always tell people, like, if you're not really passionate about something, then don't do it, because it's going to take a long time before you make money off of it.
Yeah.
And it's going to feel like work, and you may end up hating something that, you know, in the beginning you loved. So you have to be really, really passionate about it, and making money, I don't think, can be something that you even consider in the beginning. It needs to just be a labor of love and a passion project. And then when all the kind of little pieces start to fall into place, you start seeing that you're building traction, and you know, you have great content and you're getting great traffic. And then start off with the baby steps of monetizing with like Google AdSense, and then working your way up from there to work with larger advertisers and larger sponsorships. And really, it's just it's like one day at a time. One day at a time.
That's pretty cool. You know, it's a very similar story for podcasting.
Right.
I get people asking me all the time about how do I make a podcast and use that to make a living. And I said, you've got to understand that's a very small field of people who are actually making enough money to make a living from podcasting.
Exactly.
And it's exactly what you're saying. You've got to be very passionate about the subject. So if you want a podcast, ask yourself, why do you want to podcast?
Right.
Do you want to do it because you have something to say about a specific subject, or do you want to do it because you think it's just a cool way to make a living? If it's the second, it's probably not for you.
Not going to work, yeah.
So over the years, you've covered tons of stuff. I want to hear some of your favorite stories about just experiences you've had, either with the fan community or on the creative side, like with some of the, I know you've gone and talked with some great directors, actors, all sorts of people, writers in that sphere. Tell me about some of the experiences you've had, kind of give me an idea of the highlights that you consider in your long history.
So my first in-person interview I ever did was actually, I flew down to Miami, and I think this was like the second season of Burn Notice, and I was a huge Bruce Campbell fan, huge Bruce Campbell fan. But I didn't know anyone that knew him or had ever interviewed him, or I had no idea what he was going to be like. And we were sitting, it was me and I think 4 other press people, we were sitting at this table on set, and he comes in wearing his Tommy Bahama shirt and like riding on this bicycle around our table, and just had like a little horn on it, and was just like honking it and like just staring us down. I was like, oh God, this is gonna be awkward. this seems awkward. But it was a really great experience, and he was such a great guy. So that was my initial kind of experience that I had, that I still kind of nerd out over because I love him. But, you know, another one that is one of my absolute favorites actually happened here in Austin last June. I was out here for ATX Festival, Austin Television Experience, and they had the cast of Girl Meets World out here, which I don't really watch that show, but I grew up on Boy Meets World, and I was completely geeking out over the idea of meeting Corey Savage, Ben Savage, who played Corey Matthews, and his brother Fred was out here too, and for his show Grindr on Fox. But of course, I grew up on Wonder Years too. So I got the opportunity to interview Michael Jacobs, the series creator for Boy Meets World and Girl Meets World, along with Ben Savage, and I got to spend like 30 minutes with them. And then from there, we had gone back downstairs to the bar at the hotel, from our press room, and he introduces me to his brother, Fred, as his friend, Emma. And I was just like, this is like the most surreal moment of my life. Ben Savage just introduced me as his friend to Fred Savage. Like, it was just such a great moment. And then Fred was like commenting on my Instagram, and I'm like, what world am I in? Like, I don't even know.
Yeah, you're sitting there with a famed director of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Not to mention Wonder Years and everything else.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
It was just such a great experience. And there's been so many with the different conventions I've worked with and the different kind of, after parties and even the events that aren't necessarily press related, but getting to actually know these people that, you watch on screen and you get to, just love their talents and love the characters that they portray, but then also getting to know them as people and not, as these characters. Not just personalities. Yeah, that has just been, I haven't had a single bad experience, which I'm so grateful for, and that kind of shocks me too that I haven't. But everyone has been so great, and there's just been countless really awesome experiences.
That's fantastic too. So let me ask you a little bit more about just sort of the sort of stuff you do for FanBolt, the kind of day-to-day activities. Do you have a staff?
I don't. It is me.
That's
do have.
incredible.
It's just me. I don't want to say it's just me, but it is a little bit overwhelming some days when like a lot of news breaks, or like last week I got it was like 7 emails from HBO, all of stuff that needed to go up in addition to everything else, and it can be overwhelming. But like I do truly, I love what I do, so it doesn't feel like work. I do have a couple contributing writers that our friend Jennifer Still, she does Arrow recaps for me, and normally does conventions with me, and we'll kind of tag team press rooms and doing interviews and things like that. And then a couple of other people that'll just submit news. Like anyone can go into FanBolt and submit a news article, and if it's appropriate, I will edit it and then post it up on the site. So it is a by the fans, for the fans community. Anyone can submit news, but on the staff side, it's just me.
So you actually do have an editorial voice. You have You have editorial standards. It's not a free for all.
Exactly. A lot of people, when we first put up that submit news feature, it was just like press release. And it's like, no, the thing about FanBolt's and what makes it unique, in my opinion, is that it is by the fans, for the fans. And the point is that the person writing it is passionate about what they're covering. So it's not going to be an unbiased news type article. It's going to be heavily biased based upon what a fan actually thought of that material.
All right. Well, what's the backbone of the site, if you don't mind? WordPress. Okay.
It was, I will tell you, when I first started the site, I coded all of it to work with, all of it was in PHP, and it was coded to work with the vBulletin message board system, which I've since moved on from. But that process of moving from a custom, like PHP coded application and moving 14,000 news articles into WordPress was one of the most stressful things I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, anytime where you're having to migrate a system over from one thing to another, it's a huge endeavor, especially when you've built up a long history of material.
Exactly.
So, well, that's great. I had to ask because I just was curious how you could stay on top of things. Obviously, when you're using something that has its own kind of structure that you can play around with, WordPress is pretty robust.
It is.
It's a little bit of a learning curve.
It can be. But it saves you so much time in terms of building a site and wanting to add special features and keep things current and up to date in terms of versions that are released and all of that. It saves me. Even though I know how to do it, I could code all of that myself if I wanted to. It saves me so much more time to be able to focus on the actual content of the site and not just all of the back end of the site.
Now, you also mentioned that you started this before social media was really a thing. Now social media is a thing.
Yeah.
Does that play a role in what you do as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a love-hate relationship, honestly. Cause
I can identify.
Yeah, it definitely, message boards are a different place now than they were back before social media. And ours, we're actually getting ready to relaunch ours because we switched everything over, like I said, from vBulletin and gotten away from that, and then we're going in this new direction. So that's coming very soon. on the site. But everyone took a lot of those conversations to social media. So it was kind of an interesting learning curve of like, all right, well, how do we get these conversations back on the site, and how do we, continue to have that kind of engagement on the site? And which is still something I'm trying to figure out. And we figured it out with certain fan bases really well. And that's just because, Walking Dead, Game of Thrones are kind of sweet spots.
Yeah.
Even some of like the teenage girly shows on CW, they have one of the loudest voices, scariest voices in fandom too. So it's usually when you say something that either people really agree with or people find highly controversial, then you'll get you have to take a stand and say something that someone feels passionate about, and that's really how you create that conversation.
Right.
Post social media. But social media has been great too in terms of bringing new people into the site. We've done a lot of sponsorships and promotions around sponsored tweets and sponsored Instagrams and all that sort of thing too. So I definitely see it as a huge part that's been beneficial to the site.
My own personal experience, because of course social media is a part of my job as well, is that social media is a great way to reach out to people. It's a great way to find out what they're thinking, but it's also a great way to dedicate way more time to managing social media than to doing everything else that you need to do. It's a time suck, really.
It is.
So it is interesting that you say that. I do think that sites like yours have incredible value, because if you look at something like social media, you're generally talking about the same group of people contributing to this conversation. You're not getting any ideas outside of that group.
Right.
And it's relatively small, right?
Right.
So it's your Facebook friends or it's your Twitter followers. Maybe someone just did a search for a hashtag that you contributed to, and they might join in. But Twitter is already limited because you have so little space. Facebook, you're limited to the people who are your friends, generally speaking, unless you're someone notable who has a lot of public followers.
Right.
So sites like yours allow people who have no interaction outside of their own circle of friends to meet up with each other and share a love for something.
Quite literally, actually. I had two of my members get married.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was 2007. So that was really cool that they met on the site and then started like long distance dating, and then like 3 years later they got married. And so, yeah, it is a place where you can come, and for all of the kind of message boards, fan communities like that, you do get exposed to, other people than you would on your own social network. So that's definitely a really great opportunity to meet fans. And then if you end up meeting up at conventions and kind of having your group of con friends when you go to the different conventions, that's not something that I think is that easy to find just through your Facebook and Twitter
and
social media.
Outside of the con circuit, like for a long time, local science fiction conventions were really the only way that you would meet up with other fans that you did not necessarily personally know beforehand,
right,
and get a chance to talk to them. The internet suddenly allows that to happen over on a global scale.
Right.
So you can have the equivalent of a fan panel about a particular TV series or film series all the time, anytime, everywhere because of that. And it's one of the things I've liked. I've been part of various fan communities over the years. For those who want to know, way back in the day, I used to contribute regularly to a message board called The Bronze, which was a Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan site.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So these communities, these online communities, are something that's really fascinating to me, because it does allow for people who otherwise would never have any connection to one another to forge those connections. That can be really meaningful in the case that you presented, a lifelong connection.
Exactly.
So that's really exciting stuff as well. Well, what are you looking forward to in the future? Is there anything besides, you're talking about the site is evolving and growing. Is there anything specifically that's got you really excited, or maybe even just really scared?
Two things, actually. So FanBolt is launching a podcast in partnership with Atlanta Movie Tours.
Fantastic. I'll be glad to be a guest anytime.
We will totally have you as a guest. We will totally have you on. So we're still trying to be very thorough with all of all of our tone and our kind of structure of the show before we launch it. So we're still kind of in the beginning planning stages. We've done a couple of like test episodes, and so I hope that that'll be something, you know, within the next month or two that we'll push out. But it's going to be called the Atlas.
Wonderful.
Yeah, because a little ATL.
Yeah,
Atlas.
lovely.
Yeah,
little bit of celebrating the hometown.
Exactly. And while we're not going to focus just on Atlanta entertainment, that definitely will be a part of the show and everything that's filming in the city and going on in the city. But the other thing that I've been having a total blast with, we've partnered with Joystick Game Bar, third Thursday of every month for Project Cosplay. And so St. Patty's Day, we're going to have our third one, and that one will be DC Comics. And I think we're going to do like a little spring break style, so it's going to be like Batman versus Superman spring break style.
Fantastic.
So that'll be...
So Joystick, for those who aren't in Atlanta, is a bar arcade.
Yes.
So it's an adult arcade because it's a bar. But one of those really cool, very Atlanta kind of feel locations. So it's great that you've got that partnership going now.
It's been great, and the two guys that run it, Johnny and Brandon, run the bar. They're amazing, and they've been so instrumental in getting all of this together with Project Cosplay. We have a great group of people that do it. Our MC, Candace, is amazing. I always kind of describe it as a fun hot mess because it is a little bit of like a hot mess, but it's so much fun. So much fun. We have 3 contestants a month. You have roughly 20 minutes to put together a costume with, we provide all the materials, duct tape, safety pins, and we usually throw in a couple curveballs. But it's just been so much fun, and we've gotten such an incredible response to it for us to only be on our 3rd month. So the winner gets a golden joystick, and that's the big prize.
And bragging rights,
cool.
obviously.
And bragging rights, obviously. Right. But it's just been, I'm so excited about it. And that's, I think, seeing just the growth of that over the last couple of months and just how much of a community that's being built around that. Like, everyone stays and hangs out after we finish the show, which only runs for about an hour from 9 to 10. But everyone stays and hangs out, and we're kind of fostering a little community with those people now, and it's so many great people, and that's what I love about doing all of this is just the people. The people are so great, and the friendships are incredible.
Yeah, and you mentioned something else that's really interesting. People, again, not in Atlanta, probably aren't as aware of this, but the city over the last 5 years has really become a hotbed for film and television production.
It has.
The Walking Dead being an obvious example, but there are other ones, Sleepy Hollow films in the area now. We've got movies that are always being shot. We've got Pinewood Studios south of the city. That was the sister Pinewood Studios to the one that's in London.
Right.
So since you've launched, you've seen the city that you work in turn into a major film and television hub. So you really lucked out.
I really did. People always ask me, like, when are you going to LA? Aren't you going to go to LA? And I'm like, well, in LA, I'd be a very small fish in a very big pond. But with everything going on in Atlanta and really the lack of media there, we don't have the Entertainment Tonight's or the E! Online's or, all of those kind of big entertainment giants in Atlanta. So I get to do so much and go to so many sets and do so many interviews, and I'm not planning on leaving. I don't foresee it happening.
Well, you don't need to go to LA because LA is coming to us.
Exactly.
So
exactly. There's so much, and especially in the genre space, we just have, like you said, with Walking Dead and Sleepy Hollow, Netflix's Stranger Things, which I'm really stoked about, comes out in June. I'm really looking forward to that one. But there's just so many ones that are in that kind of sci-fi horror genre, and that's what I love. So being able to see the shows that I actually love to watch on TV being filmed around the city, it's just so cool.
That's great. So let everyone know where they can find your site.
It's FanBolt's.com. That's FanBolt.com. And you can find us on all the social medias at FanBolt's. And me personally, Emma Loggins, like Kenny Loggins.
Yeah.
Loggins,
You're
Loggins.
Not that much like Kenny Loggins.
Not that much like Kenny Loggins. But yeah, Emma Loggins on all social media, and I constantly post. We post articles. usually 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, but if we're at conventions and stuff like that, we'll do some special stuff on Saturday and Sunday too. But there's always something new on the site.
Great. Well, I encourage my listeners to go and check that out. And guys, if you have any suggestions for future episodes of Tech Stuff, you got to let me know about them, because otherwise I'm just kind of wandering around with my eyes closed. So here's how you do that. You send me an email. The address is techstuff@howstuffworks.com, or you can drop me a line on Twitter or Facebook. We're TechStuffHSW at those, and I will talk to you again really soon.
For more on this and thousands of other topics, visit howstuffworks.com.
Hi, this is John Roderick from the rock band The Long Winters.
And I'm Ken Jennings from the syndicated quiz show Jeopardy!
We have a podcast called Omnibus.
It's a time capsule of our era, and we put a new entry in the ground every Tuesday and Thursday.
Listen on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to never miss a single episode.